So it's Friday, it's that time again of the week where it's you hangout time, and today I'm joined by Craig. How you doing, Craig?
Brilliant, thank you.
Good, good. So as always, we kind of do a little bit of a brief introduction. How did you get involved with Embarker, Craig?
So yeah, 5 years ago I joined an Umbraco agency. It was quite small at the time, and we were doing quite basic Umbraco installations. And ever since, we've pretty much grown to a point where we're doing quite complicated systems within Umbraco as well, and extending it and doing quite a lot that I suppose you couldn't do in other CMSs. So it's quite nice. But yeah, probably about 5 years now, and that's pretty much the only CMS I've worked with so far.
Awesome. No worries. So 5 years ago, I know. So you work with it's Mentor, isn't it? Mentor.
Yeah, Mentor Digital.
So, yeah, Mentor Digital. So you guys were one of the guys that helped build Mentor Web. Is it Webblocks? Is that the one?
Yeah, Mentor Webblocks. Yeah.
So that was obviously before the concept of the grid and things like that. You guys still using your own stuff, or kind of what's the?
Yeah, we're still using Mentor Webblocks. Yeah, it's come quite far. You know, you start off with, say, the first version, which was part of the demo that we used at the UK festival quite 3 years ago, I think now. The first version was really bad. Went to number 2.
It was really bad. I like the way you're kind of honest there. Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah, it's that initial thing where you go, yeah, that wasn't quite right. Yeah, that shouldn't be quite there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so number 2 came out, and then so now we're currently running on version 5, which is controller-based blocks.
Okay.
So when you drag on a block, it calls a controller, and then you can handle your business logic there, your view models. So in theory, your view is it doesn't contain any business logic, anything like that. So that's the newest version. So it's come quite far.
Cool.
You know, essentially now I would just call Webblocks is now just a way to arrange HTML.action controls, essentially.
Okay, that sounds nice. We'll have to get you on again and take a refresher on Webblocks. But today we're not talking about Webblocks. We're talking about LINQ to Examine. So this is another project that you've done.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did this come about, really?
So really, this come about was purely because, specifically my job, and I suppose seeing other people struggle with Examine, and they would go towards just using the Umbraco cache directly. So yeah, I was the main go-to guy to get any searches written. And optimization of code and things like that. So sometimes when parts of the website was really slow, it was faster to access the cache, but sometimes there's a lack of skills when it comes to working with the Examine and working with the Fluent API.
So querying Examine to get stuff back out, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So essentially, it was something that came about because a lot of people, when you work with Umbraco, LINQ is something that you have to use. And you have to know LINQ, and obviously you work with classes as well. So I was thinking, is there any way that, just like you got LINQ to SQL and Entity Framework or anything like that, is there any way that we could be able to do LINQ expressions or Lambda expressions and essentially just translate that into Lucene query, essentially?
Okay, so maybe we should jump straight into a demo and kind of see it in action. At least then I can jump in with any questions as we go along.
Yeah, sure. Yep, let me just start this. So today I've got 2 demos. Yep. One of them is just a simple search. It's just a normal text search that searches for the name of any content node in Umbraco. And I've got a patience system that it just shows that you can actually do a lot more than just text. You can do date ranges, date range search, Boolean search. I mean, you could also do integers, doubles. but essentially, hopefully this is what I'll get into next. So I'll go onto the search, just to go for a basic demo. So I've just got a normal search control here, standard way you'd normally implement it. Yep. So if I type in, say, extend, which is kind of comes with the Plano package, the starter kit. So if I just search for that, I get the search result back. Also, if I type in the index as well as all my patients, so if I wanted to, I could just type in just any patient as well, and that should just appear there. Now, essentially, what this is doing, it's pointing to, and this demo is available on GitHub as well, so you could download it and look at the code and try out the code yourself. Now, this search is going to be posted into the search controller in my Visual Studio project. So essentially, it's just standard. Yeah, essentially, it's just going to render initially, and then this is the perform search. So what happens here is we've got an index, which is essentially the starter of the actual search. So you start off with calling up a new index, and by default, when you just an empty constructor, it will access the external searcher, which is the default one that you should be using. And obviously, it is possible. I'll walk you through in a minute how to search other indexes as well. So you can target member indexes. You can also create your own indexes and search against that as well. But just as a basic kind of description, essentially, this is saying that I want a new index and I want to query using the result class. And the result class comes built into Lucene. LINQ to examine, and essentially that's just set up as a basic way of, let me go through. So we've got node name, node type alias, the actual search result, if you wanted the search result, the date time that it was created, the date is an int, but that's probably going to be useless, and the node ID. So essentially what this allows you to do is, all you really need to do is just install this through NuGet, and you can use it pretty much instantly. You don't have to create your own custom query models. So yeah, so we're going to use the result class, and we're going to say where the name contains the query essentially, and I do a fuzzy on it. Now you can also do .boost, which will boost that if it's true. But yeah, essentially that's just going to say it has to match it, do a fuzzy match essentially. And then results.toList actually triggers the search on
so
toList.
Doing the toList is actually then performing the search in the background.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean that's essentially the basic search, that you could install it and just kind of get it done, and yeah, just literally one line of code.
Okay. So we've just had a question come in. So Lars Eric is asking, how would you search in content properties? So here you're searching against the name of the node.
Mm-hmm.
I presume Lars is then asking, how would I search, say, in a piece of content?
Yep, so what we've got is, by default, the result class is just, it allows you to search against the name, the create date, as I said just now, is basically the basic part of Umbraco that you might just want to search. If you want to start searching properties, this is where you'll probably want to create a custom model.
Okay. Yep. So
say, for example, the patient query model. So the way you create custom models is through, so I've created a patient query model, and essentially we've got some properties on a patient document type. And so this class is of node type alias patient. So when I create a new index and I say it's a patient query model, by default, the Lucene query is going to query on node type alias patient. So you don't have to worry about saying where node type alias equals patient, because your class is a patient. So this feels like a good model to me, which is the reason why I implemented it. And in terms of properties, So there's a string property called first name. There's a string property called last name, title, email, gender.
So you're just generally mapping the model back here.
Yeah, essentially. So this is a date time, which is a date picker within a Bracco, and that's just a checkbox, which is a Boolean.
Yep.
Now this is where I'll move on to, or actually, does anyone have any questions around the actual generating the model?
2 seconds there. So Lars is then trying to follow up this question with so no querying different models and getting a general search result model.
So if you wanted a general search result model.
Yeah, I think that's So
yeah. So by default, what you could do is do public search result, which say, well, we want it to be the examine, and then I'll just call it result. Now, by default, the built-in mapper will set that automatically if that exists as a property on the class. So when it creates an instance of this class, when it wants to give you back the result, essentially it'll be a property that is your actual search result, and LINQ to examine will map these fields back into the query model, so that if you weren't really interested in this and you were only interested in this data, LINQ to examine got it built in, so it maps the results back into the query model.
Okay, nice.
Cool. So if I just go over the basics actually this probably goes into the more advanced stuff now, where when you've got an index, you may want to query other indexes. So there is a constructor which will allow you to pass in an index name. So if you wanted to, you could say the member searcher, and then that will just, when you query that, the LINQ to examine will automatically map to that index.
Okay. Yep.
Now, another thing is that by default with LINQ to examine, if I talk through the process of actually what is happening, it's you create the index. So this is the index queryable, and then you query it, and then it's going to generate the Lucene query. When it generates the Lucene query, it then tries to find an search provider, and if you don't pass one into the constructor, it will use the built-in one, which is going to access the standard Lucene from Bracco. And then once it's returned, once the search provider or its searcher returns the search results, it then calls an mapper, which an mapper is a class that you can also inject into the constructor that will allow you to write your own custom mapper. So if you're using Ditto or the model builder or anything like that, then you can kind of do the model preparation there.
Okay, that's quite nice then. So that we can at least override the model mapping to suit, yeah, like you say, Ditto or models builder. Okay, nice.
Yeah, because essentially what you could then consider, this is just a LINQ to Lucene tool. Once you take out that and you write your own mapper and you write your own searcher, I'd say the searcher you probably don't need to worry about. You can just keep the one that's built in. You probably will want to write your own mapper, in which case I'll just quickly show you what the custom mapper looks like. So I've written a custom mapper for the patient that I'll go over in a minute.
Yep.
So we got a custom mapper, and so it's an mapper that is going to map a patient query model. And what LINQ to examine will do, it will pass in the search results that come back from the searcher. So once it comes back, it'll call this to map the results to the query model. So then it's your job to then go, right, I'll new up an Umbraco helper, and then I'll call the constructor. And on the query model, I have just a constructor that takes an iPublish content, essentially. So you can pretty much control that stuff. This is just more of a hard-coded way of just mapping over. Obviously, you can use Ditto or Model Builder to do all this for you. But essentially, it's just the concept that I wanted to go over, that you can pretty much do anything here. You know, if your query model, you just want to be a query model, you can have a property on the query model that is of the actual type that you want. Yep. So you could, just like I said, search result just now, when I create the search result there, sorry, one sec.
No problem.
So yeah, so so essentially if you've got a property on the patient query model, that can be the actual result that you want to use, in which case, in the search controller, if you were using your own custom mapper, you might want to do .toList, .select, and just select that property so that you've got the real results.
Yep. Okay, nice.
Now, I suppose the next thing, I'll probably go into the more, advanced stuff, but if we go to the patients, so what I've done here, I've created a patient system, and it's only just a basic thing just to show that I can query, and essentially I want to query the first name and last name. That's what I want this to do. So I can type in a last name, it'll give me it. If I type in a first name, it'll give me it, or just either. I've got a date of birth from and to, so if I wanted to, I could search anything between a specific date, anyone who was born between that. And also I've got just a Boolean here. I couldn't really be that inventive around this, so I just, you know, if you tick that, it'll just show you the UK citizens. At the moment, because I've done an import, there's 1,000, just to kind of show the speed of it. Although this is a slow laptop, there's 1,000 patients in this system, and there's only 2 UK citizens. But that's only because I added this after I imported all the users, all the patients. So unfortunately, so what I've done for this demo, I've actually implemented my own custom searcher so that I can get access to the query that gets passed to it. So
okay,
if I go,
so you can see the raw leucine that's actually getting generated and run. Yep,
exactly. So what I'll show you, I've got a custom searcher here. And obviously anyone else can do the same if they want to see the query. So all they got to do is implement a nice searcher. I've just added just a leucine query there and essentially is just a search method, passing the query, and then I just say, right, target the leucine search, .search with the query, and also set the query so that I can get access to it.
Yeah, you can just see what was passed in. Okay. Cool.
Yep. So let me just close all this. So I'll just talk you through the patient search. So I've got a patient's controller, and this time I haven't set up the search to happen within the actual method or the actual action, just purely because I wanted to be able to modify the search as I'm going along, but really the search really should happen here, you know, within C#. But so that just returns a view. Let me go down to the patients list, and so essentially, yeah, I passed the criteria in with this model.
Yeah, that's okay. So you do.
I'm just going to do it in the view.
Done in the controller in the view in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So with this, and so yeah, I just create an instance of the custom searcher, the custom mapper, and then I knew this up with the custom searcher and custom mapper. By default, this is going to access the external searcher, and I just say as queryable, because what I'll be doing is if they set a query, then I want to say first name contains that, or model.query is in the last name. So it's basically going to query the first name or the last name. If it exists in either one of them, then it's just going to show. So I'm just going to enable this just for now, and then I'll just quickly show you what happens. So if I type in Tammy, then I can search. And so what that has given me is, because on the class I've got that no type alias attribute, there's a patient is automatically put there. So if I wanted to, I could get rid of this altogether, essentially by just saying, give me a new index of patient query model. It's basically just going to create a Lucene query that says, give me all patient instances of patient document type, essentially. And so just by having that, it should give me all of them. So I've removed the where query that should remove that should remove this.
Okay, so it's just give me everything that is a patient. Yep.
Yeah, essentially. Now I'm just going to put this back in. So yeah, essentially, you could say, give me everything that's the first name or last name. But if it's the first name, then I want it to boost.
Yeah, because maybe it's more important that the match is in the first name.
Yeah. In which case, I could then just say, right, Tammy has to be in the first name. So when it does search, when it gives me it, it'll give me Tammy there. Maybe there might be someone who might have a last name. Yeah, so there we are then. So we got Henry.
So the three Henrys, but the first name are listed first, and then anyone that's got Henry as a surname is then listed afterwards.
Yeah. Now, as well as that, if you wanted to, you could say fuzzy, because the users might not be able to spell properly or something like that. So
fair enough.
You could say that, and it's just standard. It'll give you basically give you this query. So it'll say, give me anything in the patient, and within brackets, the first name, that's Henra, fuzzy 0.6, or last name, and no fuzzy on this one. What you could do as well is, so you've got fuzzy, you've got boost. Obviously, there is the possibility that in theory you could do a wildcard. That's also possible, because that will just get appended to the query. So by default, and then if you wanted to, I could just then say, just get rid of that, say hen. And then I'll just give me that, essentially. Now, let me just undo that. So now with the date ranges, what I've done is on the search criteria, I've just got date of birth from, date of birth to. If it has a value, then I'll say the index query, you could name that whatever, but essentially index query where date of birth is greater than date of birth from or less than date of birth to. Essentially, that's all it's doing. So if I were to go back to this, I could then type in, say, Henry, or actually, let's just go back to the full results. So if we get a full list, now if I do an order by on these results, it'll make it easier to see. So hopefully they'll be ordered by date of birth, so it'll make it easier to see the date of birth from until. Yeah, so we've got these results now. So we'll say we want anything from the first 1980 all the way till, say, today. So if I just still search, so yeah, just starts giving me this. Now with the query that it provides is give me anything that's a patient, and what it'll do, this is all in brackets here, where date of birth is greater than 1980. Here too, pretty much the max, and date of birth where it's the min, all the way to today. And because both got a match, only the ones between that will pass. Okay. So
just out of interest, the top query, so you go back to the raw Lucene. So the first one from the timestamp is without the kind of semicolons, and the latter one is that something that is...
whereabouts this? Is this...
Yeah, so the timestamp where it says T0000, and then the last one is 2016, and then T00:00:00:00. Is that just Lucene being a bit weird?
Yeah, it's Lucene being weird. There's some optimizations that I put into this because there are some instances where you don't get the correct results if you use this in the string. So if I use this format here, you won't get the correct results. And same as when you have this date, when you want the minimum, it's basically you don't get the result either. So the way it works essentially is that I've essentially put the real date there and the minimum it could be in the index, because at the end of the day that is similar to a text range search. I suppose you could say that. But I mean, it provides the correct results. I don't know whether it's Lucene.
No, it's fine. It was just something I just spotted whilst you was just going through your query.
Yeah, there's a few optimizations that I think some people will come across themselves if they try to do this themselves. And so I've kind of sat down and tried to optimize as much as I can. And so far, it seems to be giving me the correct results. I've tried this on different versions on Braco as well, so I don't think it's just my system. I think it's just generally Lucene. Yeah. Maybe possibly Lucene.net that could be doing it, but yeah, obviously, if we go to a new version and it suddenly starts working, then I can always revert these back to the correct date times, and everyone's code stays the same.
Cool. No, that's really neat. Nice.
So yeah, I mean, essentially, so if we go down, say I want anything to the end of 1982 then, so I'll just say 1982, let's see, 12, so end of the year 1982, that should give me the results all the way to the end of 1982.
Brilliant.
And yeah, so essentially, all this is pretty much what we need to do. I mean, it's almost like teaching your granny to suck eggs with a lot of this, because if people know Lucene, if people know LINQ, then you
can start manipulating the data how and where you need to, which is
essentially that's why given this demo is almost like, you know, the actual stuff I need to demo is invisible to everyone.
Yeah, it's the stuff under the hood that is obviously where the real work is happening.
So, I mean, essentially, so just to go over this one last thing here. So, if UK citizen only is true, then we're just going to say, get me where anything that is UK citizen is essentially true. So if I go up here, let me just make sure I save that. Yeah. So if I get rid of these dates, because I don't know. So right, so let's get everyone again. And as I said, I've done the import, and then I went through to, and then I just ticked that box for the true false value for the patient. So if I check this and I just click search, we should get 2 results.
Okay, nice.
And now it should also be possible that you should be able to just do not if it's not that, in which case, you know, I've inverted it, and LINQ to examine can handle that as well. So you could say where it's not, and then that should give me all of them apart from those 2.
Awesome.
And also, I mean, also the same that you could do with this as well. You know, the to and from can just be a filter that you don't want anything in between as well. You know, wrap that around, and I'll just say, get me anything where it's not between the date of birth from and date of birth to. In which case, if I get rid of that, so yeah, get me anything that's say the first of the first 1965. It's wrong, 1965. And if we go down to the bottom, we go all the way to 1991. I think, no, 1992. So if I just go all the way to that date there, the 30th of the 12th, 1991, 31st of the 12th, 1991, I should get anything that's outside of that range. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So yeah, you can invert these. You can, you know, it is proper expressions. And obviously, one of the benefits of LINQ to examine is the fact that it's a proper iQueryable implementation. So if I go to the search controller, just to make it quite just easy to understand, I'll just rewrite this statement here. So I could say var results equals new index result. And yeah, let's do this as a proper from R in the index,
yep.
where R dot name dot contains criteria dot query, and obviously you can do these as well. And yeah, that R. And essentially that will also work. This is another way of writing these statements.
Yep.
So just kind of give you a demo just to prove that it works. I'll just type in Hammy again, and that should give me the results that I had just now.
Brilliant.
And just to quickly go over that, there are some extension methods. So on the, if you look at the extensions namespace,
yep.
You'll get string extensions. So it could be is any, contains any, sorry. So you've got two extension methods for string. Is contains all. So if you had a string array, you could say Harry, Bella, someone, and essentially that's going to say it has to contain all of them.
Yep.
And that's the query they'll essentially write. So essentially, yeah. So you can do contains all, and it has to match these three. So yeah, if it doesn't contain all these three, it's not going to do it. It's not going to return any results. Contains any is another helper method. It's more explicit. I thought there's ways you can do this by just doing name.contains Harry, or name contains Bella, or name contains someone. It's almost, there are helper methods in here that are implemented as well, so you could use them in your code. But essentially, these will map to the LINQ to examine. That will map to a Lucene query where it says it can contain any of them. And same as if there's, it works with integers as well. I don't know if I might have it in. I think it might be date as in, ignore that, but there is, no, actually, no, forget about that. That might have been on the first version. That was a mistake. Forget about that.
No worries.
But yeah, I mean, that's just a basic concept. But yeah, I suppose the most important thing is that just LINQ to examine just creates your Lucene result, the Lucene query essentially, and it's got a built-in mapper that uses reflection. It's not the best kind of way to do this. But it's just something out of the box, that because, you know, I'll map this field
yep.
to your property because I want to give you back the result mapped as a class, as an instance of that class. But yeah, probably the most important thing is that you can inject your own custom mapper to work with anything.
Yeah, so that's probably just going to bring me on to my question that I had. So if I had a custom examine index that is actually probably not indexing anything directly from Embraco, I'm indexing some custom data from somewhere else. Yep. Should I use this LINQ? LINQ to examine.
Yeah, definitely.
So I could write the mapper to map to my custom class, and that uses then my custom examine index.
Yeah, you can do that. I would say the only thing you probably want to get rid of on your custom query model is that attribute there. And then essentially this is just going to map. So if I said first name, you know, essentially you're just saying that, yeah, if you kind of got to think how looping kind of functions as well, because you end up with what you wanted to achieve is that you're going to do something like first name Harry, and then you're going to have last name, and you know, so yeah, you have to think that because Lucine's it is a flat data system, really. It's stored in a flat file. Well, not necessarily a flat file, but it's not really structured. So yeah, as long as you kind of understand how the index
works,
looks and works, yeah, you can create your query models. Yeah, I mean, essentially it's just field and the name of the property that you want to search. So yeah, I mean, essentially this is essentially just a link to Lucene Query Builder, essentially. So if you did have a different implementation than the one that's in Umbraco, then yeah, by all means, you can just generate the query and do whatever you want with that yourself.
Yeah, very, very nice. I'm just trying to think. I'm just checking the questions at the minute. No. Okay. Is there anything else that needs to be kind of demoed or shown off, or so to speak?
To be honest, I don't think so. No, I wouldn't say so. I think that's pretty much that's pretty much it. Like I said, is a lot of it is teaching a granny to suck eggs, because the interface, the way you use it is a standard way that any C# would, with say entity framework, link to SQL, and yeah, I mean, a lot of it's taken care of for you. I suppose the things that people might want to look into is the custom mapper to work with Ditto and the model builder. That you know, everything seems to be going that way. So yeah, I would recommend, especially when you're working with a lot of data, don't use the built-in mapping. Create your own mapper. You know, it is quite heavy duty. I suppose there's one last thing is that the .take method, extension method, and .skip, they're also implemented as well. So if you're doing pagination,
so yeah, that was actually something I forgot to ask. We had that long list. Could we have done take and skip with pagination, so to speak?
Yeah. Obviously, because you're not going to want to run your mapper with those results, because that's just a waste. Because you might take after you map. So essentially, if you just call skip and take before you call .toList, it will make sure that it only takes that set of results, essentially.
So we've got a question from Ben McKean. He asks, does it work okay with combined searches? For example, with more than one index, an index of Umbraco content and a custom index?
No, not both at the same time. It targets, I mean, essentially, like I said, it's a custom. Essentially, it's a link to Lucene Query Builder. So if there was a specific way that you could just generate that link to Lucene Query, if you just create that Lucene Query, then you could implement your own iSearcher. I've not really tried to do searching on two indexes, but yeah, I mean, in theory, you could implement your own iSearcher and then search both indexes and combine the search results, possibly.
Okay. Yeah, it's obviously Ben's got quite a specific need here, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's worth a try, and definitely let me know how you get on.
Yeah. So with that being said, I presume the project's open source on GitHub somewhere.
Yeah, if you go to github.com/base33, that's BASE33, and then it's just linked to examine. But there's also a demo site on there as well that you can download.
The exact same demos that we've just seen?
Yeah, and then you can play about with that yourself as well.
Cool.
And the credentials is in the README file if you want to access the back office.
Nice.
Yeah.
another question from Lars Eric. I'm just reading this from Twitter. Yeah, LINQ to Lucene looks nice, but can you make it possible to query different models at the same time? So I presume where you're passing in your type or your model or your query model, is it possible to pass in more than one model or query model?
You could, yes. Yeah, essentially the no type alias attribute is not mandatory. So if you don't put it on there, when you generate the query, it just won't put no type alias has to be, say, patient. So you just don't put that attribute, and then you could create, say, a super query model that has absolutely everything. You know, that has a no type alias property that you could say where no type alias equals this or this. Yeah, essentially. So yeah, it's just a technique of being able to. You got to think about how you want the Lucene query to look, and then you just put the property on there and say, yeah, it has to be this or this. So yeah, you can.
Nice. I think that's it for questions for now. I'll just give it a moment or two. Is there anything else you want to add in the meantime? You're looking for contributions or feedback, or? To
be honest, feedback, yeah, it would be nice to get some feedback. I know a lot of people has used it already. It's got 1,400 downloads so far, 30 since Tuesday. So I know people use it. We've got a few freelancers who come in and out of Mentor as well. That I have spoke to them and they use it in other agencies as well. So it would be quite interesting to know where someone's had it, they've not seen that it, maybe it didn't work for them. Just put your feedback on the GitHub, or there's a forum page on the LINQ to Examine project page on our Umbraco.
Yep.
So yeah, just literally just give any feedback and any bugs, and yeah, I'll try and get through them.
Yeah,
and any features as well that people want.
Very, very nice. I think we'll wrap up there for then today. Thank you so much for coming on and showing LINQ to Examine. I will hopefully catch up with you soon, Craig.
Yep, brilliant. Thank you very much.
No problem. Speak to you soon.
Cheers. Right, speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.